Thanks everyone for being here. And also thanks a lot to the organizing team for actually having created this space for us to meet and to reflect together. For us, the Ljubljana conference, for us four who organized this panel, it's a really good occasion to reflect together because we are not seeing each other physically so often these times. So it's actually quite nice to take time together. And so who are we? Flora, Gaia, Katarina, and me, Bianca. We're eco-social designers working in Italy, Slovenia, Germany, and Denmark. And we all work with a feminist approach and towards ecological and social justice. And what we do in our work, in our feminist design practice, is very much to experiment with our own life worlds and to do a lot of self-initiated projects. So it's mostly not like we're designers who get commissions from outside. We rather kind of think of what we want to do and co-design projects and strategies together with communities, and then create the economies to make these projects and initiatives happen. And the four of us, we got to know each other at university. So some of us studied together, others simply, had paths crossed in other ways at university. And we're now, for a long time, I would say, united by friendship and by support and inspiration that we give to each other. Is this this is my clock, which just told me, okay, I should be here. And we all four of us, we are part of the CERN network. And we are very much inspired by the community economy approach, which we see as an enabling tool within and a transformative tool within our design practices. And we really kind of mobilize this approach to that, that economies are always diverse and that they can be community economies with the well-being of people and the planet at the core. We mobilize it in multiple practices, which Flora is showing you on the screen. And also all our practices are, on the one hand, we're interdependent between each other, and we kind of try to acknowledge that interdependence and work on it. But we are also kind of working in a way that we are aware of our interdependence with other humans, with other organizations, but also more than humans, others. And that's what we try to bring into our practice. And for today, what we wanted to do is to kind of tell you, kind of give an overview of where each of us is at and what we're grappling with at the moment, but also how we actually how do we mobilize this diverse economies and community economies approach, and what are the questions that are most pressing for us at the moment. And the way we structured this was that we have kind of short presentations, and then we have a time at the end to discuss all together. And with this, I would hand over to Flora, who might say something about the Padlet that she created. It's the first time we're using this, and it's actually a pretty amazing tool. So maybe Flora, you want to say something on that as well?
Yes, I can say something to it. So if you like, I can also share the link to the Padlet at the end of our presentation. So you have all the links of our practices in there, and you can just use it also as a resource for yourself. And if you like, before we start maybe with the first input, we can make a little intro exercise that each of us is maybe writing the name in the chat and the location you're connecting from. And maybe also you can share with us what you see when you're looking out of the window. And Bianca, maybe what you see, you're already outside. Share it in the chat, that would be great. Perfect. Thank you. So now we could start with the first presentation.
Okay, so I think it's my turn. Thank you, Flora, for and Bianca for your lovely introductions. And also, hello everyone from my side. My name is Gaia. I come from Ljubljana, and I'm about to present the practice, which is connected around community, multi-species, community laboratory Crater. I have been connected with community economies and the lovely ladies who are with us today through different projects, and it's really like a connection and a friendship that has been evolved through now I think around 10 years or so. So I'm happy to catch up and basically also, follow how we are evolving as design practitioners. And that is why I wanted to present to you today the work around Crater, which is situated in a rewilded construction site, really close to the city center of Ljubljana. This will be a rather spontaneous presentation, but I will try to kind of make an overview of what our practice was about, I think, in the last year or so. Flora, can I just ask you maybe to go a little bit down? So we have inhabited Crater a bit more. Just a bit more. We have inhabited Crater, I think, in just when Corona started, basically in just a bit more. Yes, perfect. So it was in spring 2020, and Crater is like a very particular and amazing site, which hasn't been touched by humans for the past 28 years. It kind of, after the demolishment of the artillery barracks, which happened, I think, around 94, nature basically had the way to develop to its full potential. So a very unique pioneering ecosystem forest sprouted on the site. And this was also basically why our collective of designers, but also others I will tell about more, wanted to inhabit this site to open it up for public, but also to open it up for research connected of how basically we as an urban community can find new reciprocal relationships with the nature, but more or less not this perfect nature that we usually have in mind, but this sort of degraded nature that sprouted from the ruins that we have created. And I'm speaking now as a representative of Trajna, but also of Crater Collective, which is a collective of permaculture workers, designers, ecologists, artists. So a very multidisciplinary collective, which we all kind of gathered around this place to basically work on eco-social practices that we are developing or that we have been developing previously, but are now kind of, the space is also hosting and enabling us to interlink and to create community common projects and community economies. The initial idea of why Trajna actually wanted to inhabit Crater was because we were working for more than 5 years with the problem and the problematic of invasive plants. So this is also a site where a lot of invasive plants are actually sprouting, and the idea was for us not only to basically focus on the products that we were developing from the biomass of invasive plants, but really trying to tackle a more relational, practice to understand like how can we better inhabit those kinds of environments where invasive plants are present. So we have set up 3 laboratories. One is a paper making workshop, one is a wood workshop, and also one is a mycelium lab to be able to create new material cultures and to basically experiment with the biomass and develop new products, but also relations, so community economies, let's say, around those products. One of the interesting projects that we were developing in the last year was called the Forbidden Vernacular project, and it was basically commissioned by Bio27, a biennial design biennial in Ljubljana. And it really kind of helped us to develop our narrative in regards to material practices, because what we have figured out was that actually the materials that we are developing at Crater are rather inaccessible to be produced on bigger scales or within the communities. So just to give you maybe a few examples, if you would want to collect wild clay from the site, that would be a forbidden practice. If you would want to basically create a production line, you would have to go through this amazing and expensive certification processes that for a lot of people are inaccessible. If you would want to create with mycelia further on, you would have to pay again a lot of money to get the certificate from the Ecovative company, who is basically protecting all the knowledge and practices around mycelia production. And lastly, if you would want to, for example, use invasive plants as food source, then again, that would be prohibited because they are not considered and they're not listed on the list of novel foods in European Union. So a lot of materials that we were exploring with, actually, we understood that they're in one or other way forbidden. And for that reason, we have built up a Rammed Earth Pavilion together with international designers and architects. It was some sort of a summer school setting, workshop setting, where we have been learning together how to build with Rammed Earth, which was collected from the site itself. And the intention of this building was, besides creating and enabling new knowledge practices, also to actually host a pavilion, a tea pavilion assembly, where we invited people from like policy making, local design practitioners, and kind of interesting stakeholders to discuss the future and the accessibility of local materials. So that was kind of the final output of this project. And just to maybe finish it up, or maybe to kind of present the other side, or the other parallel project that was also happening on Crater this year, or this is the project of the Feral Palace. And it's linked to the fact that in 2023, the Palace of Justice will be built on the site, because the site is being owned by the Ministry of Justice. And you can see here the winning proposal of the architects of the future Palace of Justice. And somehow our community of eco-social practitioners felt really the urge to address this future's Crater extinction in a way that we would think that would create some sort of a dialogue, not maybe So what we wanted to do is what we understood was the fact that actually the way that the administration and the policies that were set for this competition, they couldn't recognize the vibrant ecosystem and the current position of Crater as something that was alive. It was really, placing this understanding that Crater is a tabula rasa and a new infrastructure can be easily built on top of it. So what we wanted to do is to create a school again to basically, produce new knowledge and new understanding of how these sites can be sites of value. And we have gathered around this school like international designers, ecologists, lawyers, landscape architects and architects to speculate on the like multi-species just futures of Crater. So we're really taking into account this idea of justice. And we have created alternative scenarios of how this site could be transformed if it would keep in mind also the justice of other living beings that are currently present. And I'm not sure like how am I doing with time, maybe like horribly. So Flora, if I'm over the top, maybe then I just finish up here.
Thank you very much. We're still good in time, but yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Gaia. Maybe we can already switch. So we thought that we like all present and then we have the discussion afterwards. So now we go to the presentation of Katharina Möbus. She cannot be here, unfortunately, today because she has an appointment, a medical appointment. But she just sent us a video that I will now play.
Hi everyone, my name is Katharina and I'm very happy to take part in this conference. Many thanks to the organizers and my lovely co-presenters, Bianca, Flora and Gaia, for making this possible as well. Unfortunately, I cannot be here in person today, so I have recorded this video for you. I am a designer and researcher working with community economies, commoning practices of do-it-together, skill sharing and caring through my practice-based research and vice versa, research-based practice since more than 10 years now. The main question that has evolved over these years tackled space and economies. How can we co-produce spaces of common and how can they be reproduced over the longer term, supported by design and other creative practices? I became part of the CERN network and have worked a lot with urban commons in the past years for these reasons, amongst other in the Urban Commons Research Group, together with other researchers and practitioners with whom we have just recently published a handbook of urban commons, and also in my current PhD research project at Sheffield University School of Architecture. In these few minutes, I would like to talk shortly about past projects that shape the basis of what I am doing now and what I am planning to do in the future. As you will hear in this session, this is not always easy, but the possibilities and the horizons we're working towards are both motivation and reward. In 2015, I co-edited a book called Agents of Alternatives with Alistair Fuart-Luke and Anja-Lisa Hirsche, which you can see here. And we published it independently by founding our own non-profit organization bearing the same name, Agents of Alternatives, shortly AOA. AOA has since developed into a cultural institution and publishing collective. Our goal is to bring together critical creative practices with research and publishing, as we think both realms complement each other in many ways. For example, the project Commons Lab, which we ran between 2017 and 2020 in Berlin, a neighborhood initiative which explored the commons through practical workshops like furniture building workshops with scrap wood, reading groups, book presentations, gift markets where we would explore alternative economies without the use of exchange logics, and other events, co-initiated with architect researcher Melissa Harrison and changing collaborators. Due to the pandemic and the sellout of our project space, which we shared with 20 other creatives, we had to close down the project. At the end, we published a zine which documents the formats, methods and knowledge developed together during these 3 years of unlearning. You can see here. The project was part of our practice-based PhD research, which Melissa is now completing and I am still working on and hoping to finish by the end of next year. Motivated by the pandemic, the lack of space, and the constant threat of enclosure for project spaces like others, I left Berlin and large city life behind this summer to move to an old historic farm on a small island in Denmark, together with my family of 3 small children and my partner. All of a sudden, we became stewards of a large property with many co-inhabitants: deer, pheasants, rabbits, mice, birds, insects, and many more, and also a wild apple orchard, which had entirely overgrown over the past 20 years, and which you can see here behind me. But for us, the orchard was a huge gift, in which others might have not seen any value. But we don't just want to become apple farmers and sell apple juice and other produce. With fruit production having become an extremely efficient part of global capitalism, where prices are competitive and causing many small farms to close down, the question is, what could a farm be then? What if the creation of value is not merely through the production and selling of food, but through the human interaction with the rich, more than human world that is part of a farm from a community economy perspective? Inspired by CSA schemes, we imagine an apple collective where the work and crops are shared amongst its members. Local families, school children and kindergartens, local and international friends and collaborators can adopt an apple tree and come to our farm to care for it. By doing so, we can share knowledge about apple varieties, fruit pruning, cider making, fruit presses, drying machines, and celebrate the crops, products, and community together. Combined with other sources of income, such as a guest house, raising old traditional chicken breeds, and project funding, we hope to build a stable, diverse economy that everyone can be a part of. So now forgive me if I'm ending this video with some product placement, but it just fits so perfectly. Our most recent publication with AOA, called Field Explorations, which was edited and compiled by my dear colleague and collaborator Alistair Furt-Luke, provides further inspiration. Let me show this. So I look forward to learning more about rural and more than human commoning and hope to possibly see you sometime soon on our farm. Many thanks for your attention and time, and a lovely conference to all of you. Goodbye.
Thank you also to Kathy, and I would now continue with my input and also present maybe briefly myself. My name is Flora, and I'm an organizer, engaged designer, and activist in the field of social, emancipatory, and sustainable transformations, and also recent CERN member. And today I would like to present you a project I've been working on in the last years called Forno Vagabondo. And on this project, I've been working with a really huge network of associations and individuals in the Vallagarina Valley, which is in the northern Italian Alps, to mobilize community economies concepts in practice. So what is the Forno Vagabondo? The Forno Vagabondo is a mobile social oven that travels through the valley, and it is mounted on a cargo bike. And this cargo bike is stopping in various public places, such as squares, parks, courtyards, and other very unusual places that are maybe also less considered, and we invite passerbys or like inhabitants of the valley to socialize, to bake bread together, and also to put their hands literally in another narrative, I would say. And the project actually was born after 6 months engagement with local knowledge, moods, and insights, and out of a co-thinking and doing process I initiated in 2019. And in this, the practice, but also the method for fermentation became, for me, really a way to connect with the place and to find us out how convivial bread baking could become a means, but also a spiritual mental interface practice to cultivate an attention for this, I would say, teeming food relationship networks around bread. So the core concept of the oven is to connect the practice of bread baking with creative practical activities to create spaces for modern human gathering, negotiation, and also easy access to maybe complex issues around sustainability or micro and biodiversity, but also care. And this is how it looks like in motion. And here you can also see, maybe it's a little bit slow, the Forno Vagabondo in 2020, which is an open social oven where the common baking is always heralded by a puppet show to arouse curiosity, but also to attract and especially to get to know some modern human actors that are involved in the everyday bread making. And here, for example, just a second, you can see another activity that we did in collaboration with Comunorto, which is a community garden in Rovereto. And there we tried to make a really easy approach to sourdough bread by preparing flat bread with pesti made from freshly collected herbs in the garden, and especially around the garden, to explore the connections between insects, herbs, cereals, and biodiversity. And here instead, we invited children to explore with us the transformative power of microbes in our everyday lives through reading stories, making small drawings, preparing a sourdough in simple crackers. And here really seeing, smelling, touching, tasting, and even hearing became really valuable ways of accessing modern human worlds. And by baking together, actually, we wanted to stimulate the imagination of what the different agriculture, sustainable agriculture might taste, smell, or look like, and also to communicate these diverse sustainable ethics through bread. And also in order to shake up relationships that are mostly invisible or seen as non-essential or non-vital. In this activity, we try to connect the collective bread making session with exploring the air and our surroundings. And this exploration then culminated in a collective bread baking activity where we combined the dough with lichens, and this then ended in tasting and smelling bread loaves. Maybe what was really important for the whole process was the activities friendly at diverse levels as were possible. So for example, it was possible to meet the Forno just by chance on the street, but also by listening to the puppet show or stories a little further away and just picking up a few sparks, but also by tasting or sticking one's hands in the dough or even the involved very. Are you still there?
Yes, we're here. Did Flora just drop out?
Can you hear me again? Sorry,
Yes.
Just my internet didn't work anymore. Okay. Sorry. Continue where I stopped. I wanted to say that we try to plan with the format like different levels of access. Do you hear me? Can you just give me a sign, because
Flora,
it says that my internet connection is bad.
Flora, it's a really metallic sound. Maybe you need to turn off the screen sharing so you got enough, so we can hear you speaking. I think, Flora, if you just speak, maybe it works better.
Yes, maybe I don't share my presentation anymore, because I
now we hear you well.
Yeah, perfect. So maybe just, I was already almost at the end. I just wanted to say that for the activities of the oven, it was really important to plan them in kind of family-friendly times, and also to design them in a way that different levels of access were possible. So it was possible to meet maybe the oven just on the journey, seeing it on the street, but also listening just to the puppet show from a little further away, just picking up a few sparks. But also you could just put your hands into the dough, and also you could just accompany the oven on its whole journey. And maybe one special feature of the format is also that where the oven starts, actually the places are transformed communally really in short time. And this was very important, especially due to the pandemic, because it stimulated really the imagination of how our everyday surrounding spaces can be transformed non-commercially also, and very creative. And also the oven helped to activate a lot of infrastructures, resources, but also local knowledge and civic engagement. So for example, people brought or bring wood to the oven, materials and resources are provided by a lot of local associations, and also different forms of property and infrastructure contribute to these community situations. Obviously, also the journey is accompanied by quite a lot of hurdles and difficult processes, or rather, actually, they are an essential part of each format and activity. In particular, the oven became a site of, I would say, negotiation of value practices and attributions of responsibility. And other hurdles are actually related to the long-term financing of the project. So currently, for me, the biggest question is what kind of livelihood ecology do I need to build up to make my engaged practices also possible in like long term. But generally, I would say that the oven for me was a very important tool of understanding, and also to get closer to very abstract concepts. And it was also very exciting for me to feel the energies and dynamics that come up when things are shared with others and created together. So thank you for listening to me.
Thanks, Flora. Then I think I will take over from you. Am I somewhere with my pictures? Yeah, that's me. I would like to reflect today on what happens to design research practice when it centers care, because that's a bit kind of what I'm trying to do with my work. And I'm a design researcher based in the Italian Alps in Rovereto. And over the last 16 years, I've been trying to carve out space for feminist design practice, even if maybe only the last 10 years, I would say that actually what it is feminist, is a feminist kind of approach. Before, I didn't have any words for what I was trying to do. And this is very much driven by the fact that I think that what I learned at design and art school are really cool skills to interact with the world and to have a sense of efficacy in the world, that you can change things. But I was also very sure right at the beginning that I would not want to use those skills for fostering kind of more consumerism and more of the same, but actually I wanted to use those skills for social change and for ecological justice. And then when I met the community economies approach, I realized that actually what I was interested in was working in this lower part of the iceberg. So if the economy, we imagine it as an iceberg, the top is kind of market exchanges, monetary exchanges. The economy as we kind of know it when we imagine it, you open the newspapers and on the first pages, they talk about the economy. They talk about kind of hard business, let's say, whereas I'm really interested in what's making what helps us to sustain the way we live that is not monetary. And that is the lower part of the iceberg, which is the interdependence, with your own family, with your neighbors, your friends. It's growing your own food. It's taking care of your health by, going into the mountains and so on. And so I realized that was the part where I wanted to activate my skills. And that's kind of, what maybe more generally is called like social innovation somehow, that, interacts with all the social processes. And then in 2016, I decided that I wanted to root my practice in one place on Earth, which was the Vallagarina Valley. And what you see in that image is my valley and the village where I live in, and where now also Flora lives with her partner. And so since 2016, I decided that I wanted to be in one place. And this was very much a feminist decision because I wanted to work long-term. I wanted to build up caring relationships. And I wanted to start to build community economies, starting from how I organize my own everyday, my life, with how I do the projects I do and so on. So it's kind of from my own body outwards, I'm trying to engage with the world. And that's where now I engage, or since 2016, I've been building up a whole network that I'm part of, and where I'm just one node of many, where I put my design skills, my research skills, my foresight skills into a bigger mix with other people. And here you see a picture of the group that I'm part of, which is called La Foresta Community Academy. It's a picture from October. So it's a kind of very often a bit shifting group as well. But there is agroecologists in there, there is forest scientists, there is artists, there is bakers, there is social workers, there is performance artists. It's a real kind of variety of mix. And that's where I maybe not so much do my own kind of design projects, but where I put my skills and my knowledge on community economies into other initiatives and help them to thrive. And there I have some images of groups where I closely collaborate with one is Comunità Frizzante, so sparkling community, where we make sparkling drinks with kind of really using it as a tool to experiment with the economy and with what it means to do local development in a kind of participatory, inquiring, engaging way. And this is also connected to others in the CERN network who are also drinks producers. So it's actually a kind of local international project. Then there you see people in a forest. That's a forest kindergarten that we are running, and where currently I'm on Fridays, I'm out with the kids to be in the woods with them. Then we have a group that is called Ecolab, which is all about building up skills around food processing. It's skills on like fixing your bike, building things. And this is 2 workshops a week where we kind of work on building up skills and building up social relations. And then there you see people in the forest gathering rubbish. So this is one group that my partner is really kind of putting a lot of energy in at the moment, or over the last 2 years. Here we go out into the forest, we go to the river and so on, spend time outdoors together, but we also kind of clean up rubbish. And we use this as a thinking practice of how our lives and our lifestyles need to change. So I think I see it very much still in a research phase where we kind of go out and we think together and we clean the places together and see where this will take us. And then another thing I wanted to show, which I'm really excited about, is that we're now really thinking of how in La Foresta our livelihoods are interdependent, how we depend on each other, and how the well-being of one of us is kind of really connected and to the well-being of others, and that there is a need to care for each other. So these are images of just 2 weeks ago where we did a whole day of workshops to think of like, how do we actually make a living, each of us, and how can we support each other? So this was 15 people really openly talking about how they make a living, how they want to make a living, and how they want to work in non-hierarchical ways, in ways that are not patronizing, not patriarchal, and so on. So I think this is also getting really exciting in terms of kind of community economies practice, where we really think of how we can secure each other's well-being over a longer period of time. And in my kind of quest of centering care, so this is part of like caring with others for their kind of projects and giving my skills to the desires of what they want to change. But then in my own kind of more research-focused work, I'm still working on this idea of the Val Lagarina 2060, so our valley in 2060, and how could it become a place where we have managed to engage with the environmental crisis and the social crisis in a way that is imaginative, supportive, that opens up actually scenarios that we might not be able to fully understand or imagine at the moment, but that actually would make our lives much better and satisfying and care for our mental health and so on. And within this, the big question that we're working now on as a group, and that's why I'm in this improbable location. I just was in a meeting with the municipality and the president of the whole Valley district, because together, so between public administration and local associations, we would like to take over the whole building of our train station, which is still up and running. It has about 10 to 15,000 visitors or travelers per day. And we want to create this project that's called Station for Transformation. And so what we want to do is take over the whole building and possibly also space around the building to create a civic public hub for social innovation that supports actions of mitigation and of adaptation to climate change. And so this is really a thing of taking this approach of care to the whole valley and to think of, how could we actually flip spaces of our everyday, like the train station, which is a super important intermodal hub. It's an important place for, kind of more carbon-friendly transportation, but it's also a place that is not imaginative at the moment. It's a non-place. And so how could we actually, create there some kind of catalyst that showcases promising practices, that produces new thinking, but that also produces new practice, and practice that activates all actors within a community. So not just associations or civic society, but also public administrations, as well as enterprises, to all work together to take on this gigantic challenge of climate change. And so that's kind of what we're excited to work on at the moment. And yeah, maybe that's it also from my side, that at least we still have 10 minutes for discussion. Thanks everyone for listening. And we're very open for questions. Also very silly ones, like, can you say once more something that, we have not been able to explain well, or some words that you couldn't get. Thanks. And maybe, I don't know, Flora, do you see, like, if someone needs to put up their hand, or people can just speak?
Maybe I can speak.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, thank you. It's good. it was good to hear such inspiring news on such you know, I don't know if people know I'm originally from Israel, and there's some very scary news coming as a result from the elections there yesterday. So it's good it's good to hear, like, you know, there's like nucleus of hope happening, and creativity and experimentation and stuff like that. But relatedly, I have a kind of I don't know if it's like a question that's just going to throw everyone off, or kind of like a hard question, because I'm wondering exactly about that, because I see that there's like this kind of like on a macro level, there's all this bad news coming. You know, when you look at kind of more macro politics, and for me, then the news is not really like it's not bad just because there's some like bad politicians going to do bad things, but it just, like, to me, it means like, wow, there's a lot of very angry people who are, you know, actively promoting hate. And where I live here in Hull, it's very, I mean, it's, you know, it's very different than the spaces that you presented. It's very urban. There's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of people shifting around. Like, you know, the like natural phenomenon that I see on my street is like trash tornadoes. And I was wondering, maybe because and I'm doing, maybe, you know, trying to do similar, engage in similar processes in my environment. I mean, I think some of you know, and, you know, also inspired by fermentation. Flora, we've talked about it before. And I was wondering about, because I feel like the hard part of, like, you know, if these small scale initiatives are going to be kind of a response to this kind of on like a macro scale hate that's coming, you know, becoming very visible, then you need to engage with you need to engage with these haters. You need to engage with like this kind of like very diverse, you know, like in spaces where there's not consensus about these things, and kind of be there with the conflict with these kind of initiatives. And I'm assuming that that's already happening in your projects, but I want to hear maybe about that part and the challenges that involve that kind of like engaging with diversity, with conflict, with people who don't agree, or just, I mean, there was some conversation about challenges, which I think is very interesting always when, you know, if people are going to learn and try and, you know, do something in their spaces based on what they're hearing from you. So that's I don't know if I was clear. That was my question.
Can I take this on? I would be quite happy to respond just on. I think like I mean, of course, it's all kind of scary what is happening, but then also I think Lula just won in Brazil, so I would, you know, shed some tears of kind of happiness that something good is happening from time to time, or that at least, you know, on surface you say, okay, this is probably good. I think what's important for us with engaging with those who don't engage and who actually are very scared of all the changes coming, and somehow I think, you know, the haters are those who are incredibly scared of what's going on. It's really important to be in public spaces, so like the train station, or, you know, going into the squares with the oven is super important, and to show practice. What we have kind of also just recently figured out with the haters is that the haters love our practice, but they don't love the words we use. So, you know, we have like, we're doing lots of activities, they get involved, but then when we spell out what we do, that we are not homophobic, you know, that we embrace queer culture, when we say it in words, then it becomes a problem. As long as we don't say it in words and they are involved in all our activities, they're there, they contribute, they actually love the whole thing. And then they hear the scare word, and then, I don't know, something is triggered by words rather than by practice. So I think this is kind of interesting, how with practice you can, you know, you build up human relations and you have conversations and so on. It's very different than when you hide behind words. which have been so loaded with fear and with kind of the other and who you cannot engage with. So I don't know. I really believe in practice, and that's also why we want to work with public administration to bring them into practice and to bring them out of their buildings as well into the streets. But yeah, that's all, I mean, that comes to my mind at the moment. I don't know, maybe Flora or Gaia want to take it up as well.
Maybe just a short comment. I think like we're lucky enough not to be actually encountering such communities for now, or such individuals for now. Within Crater, maybe also because the way Crater looks kind of doesn't invite anyone to join in. I'm wondering, I don't know. But what was interesting for me working on this sort of novel perspectives of how we understand landscapes and how we shape our practices was also that the haters were kind of coming from, for me, unexpected communities. So basically we're struggling and we're kind of trying to pursue like our points of view, or trying to kind of establish some sort of a fertile connection, for example, with landscape architects or with architects who are sort of not really embracing what we would like to propose, because they're so like in this narrow discipline ways of working, that what we propose for them is basically, it seems like it's almost in opposition to what they're used to, how they think and how they produce their work. So yeah, like I think for me that was like an interesting realization, basically, that really emerged from the Feral Palace project, that now suddenly like we need to find ways. And I think I completely agree with Bianca in regards to like, you know, trying to showcase through practice, but also trying to pick up words that can be then points of connection. So we need to develop some sort of a language now for the landscape architects, I guess, to try to build up alliances rather than, you know, produce new conflicts. Because I guess like this umbrella idea that we all want to pursue to create better livelihoods, it's present from from all sides. So this is just a short comment from my side.
Maybe I can add also a little story to this theme, because last year with the Forno Vagabondo, I didn't have so much time to engage with the project because I had to do other things. And this was quite interesting because other people from La Foresta that are not so, I would say, ecologists or similar, took up a little bit the project, or they used the infrastructure to make some pizza and other things around the valley. And I was super happy about it. But on the other hand, I found out that they were not really agreeing with the maybe sustainable aspects of the project. So they used flour that I would never buy. So there was a little bit this shift, what kind of resources they used. And this was kind of challenging for me also, and very interesting, because I found out that now I have to go into a conversation with them, figuring out how we can change this and how we can maybe do something together. And sometimes I actually try to enter into this conversation through flavor. So I use maybe another flavor that is another flower that is sourced like locally and biologically. And then they ask me, wow, this is really tasting so good, where does it come from? And wow, this is so salty in a way and nice. And so from this also collective tasting and sharing, also we come into, we find common points where to start from. So this is maybe something I want to say.
Actually, we are already at the end of our hour. So I don't know. I mean, it feels a bit brutal to cut off, but it also feels quite fair to just stick to this 1 hour that we had. I would say, like, if you want to kind of meet us, you could come and visit us in our perspective, respective places in Europe. So we have a farm, we have a site in Ljubljana, we have a space in the Valagarina, but also usually we also try to be in the conversations of the CERN Europe meetings every kind of last Thursday of the month or every fourth Thursday of the month. So that could also be a place where to have more conversations. Thanks everyone for having been here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Really.
Thanks, everyone. Nice to see you.
Ciao.
Thanks. Nice to see you.
So I'm going to just stop the recording if you want to have a
Yeah.
stay
Okay.
and have a chat.